Most endings don't happen the way people picture them. They don't happen with shouting in the driveway, or chairs being pushed back during an argument, or someone packing a suitcase dramatically and storming out while a sad piano plays. Most endings are quiet, peaceful, even almost gentle. In relationships, romantic, friendship, even family, the real ending usually begins long before anyone notices. It begins in silence, in that strange emotional space where someone doesn't leave, but they stop showing up. Silent quitting isn't a breakup, it's more like a slow retreat, a soft erosion, a gradual fading out of a role that someone no longer has the energy or desire to perform. You can feel it long before you can explain it. Something feels lighter, and not in a good way. Something feels unbalanced. The emotional footing shifts. And you realize you started walking more carefully around someone who once felt easy. Silent quitting begins with tiny things: missed text, delayed replies, answers that used to be full sentences, shrinking down into yeah, IDK, or the classic cool. People don't announce that they're withdrawing, they just withdraw. And if you're paying attention, you'll see it in a way someone's eyes don't light up the same way when you enter the room, or how they start offering less of themselves, less curiosity, less effort, less emotional warmth. It's not anger, not resentment, not hatred, it's emptiness. The warmth that used to power the relationship has been quietly unplugged, but the lamp hasn't fallen over yet. No one realizes it's dark. The truth is, people rarely quit loudly. Loud quitting requires confrontation. Loud quitting requires energy. Loud quitting requires explaining what they've already explained in their mind 100 times. Silent quitting is different. It's what happens when someone is too tired to argue and too resigned to hope. It's what happens when they've already accepted that the relationship won't improve, and now they're simply adjusting their expectations down to surviving. Now simply adjusting their expectations down to something they can survive. It often comes from long periods of being unheard, unseen, unappreciated, or taken for granted. People don't silently quit one bad day. They silently quit after many small injuries that added up quietly, like dust settling on a windowsill. You can tell when someone is silently quitting because the emotional tone changes. Their voice softens, but not with affection, with distance. Their presence becomes lighter, not because they're happy, but because they're pulling away from the weight of responsibility that they silently carried for far too long. Silent quitting is not always intentional. Sometimes people don't even recognize they're doing it. They just know they're tired. They know they don't have the energy to keep repairing the same broken spot in the relationship over and over. So they stop repairing it. They just step around it. And a little by little, the relationship becomes a museum exhibit of what used to be. Silent quitting can happen in romantic partnerships, but it also happens between friends, when one friend always initiates and the other simply responds when convenient. It happens in families when someone realizes your calls are always about obligations and never about connections. It happens between coworkers when someone mentally resigns but keeps showing up physically to avoid sudden change. The defining feature of silent quitting is that the relationship continues, but without participation. The structure stays standing, but the support beams are hollow. People stay for all sorts of reasons: habit, hope, fear of confrontation, fear of hurting someone, fear of being alone, or because leaving physically is harder than leaving emotionally. So they remain, but they remain only in body, not in spirit. Their emotional door is closed, but the lights are still on. So it looks like someone's home. Silent quitting is often misunderstood as coldness, selfishness, or moodiness, but more often it's self-protection and someone choosing their own peace after giving far too much for far too long. It's the final line of defense for a person who no longer has the energy to explain their unmet needs to someone who cannot meet them. And here's the gentle, quiet truth. Most people don't quit loudly because doing so feels like one last act of effort for someone who did not deserve it. Think of the times you wanted to say, "I feel invisible," or "I can't be the only one trying," or "I need you to meet me halfway," but you stop yourself because you already know how the conversation would go. You've already lived that argument in your mind, and the ending never changed, so you stopped pressing play. Silent quitting isn't about punishment, it's about acceptance, a soft, subtle acceptance that this is what it is, and it will not become what I hoped. When someone reaches that point, a stillness settles inside them, and from that stillness they begin to detach. They respond less, care less, offer less, expect less, not to be spiteful, but just to survive. And if you pay attention, you'll notice something important. Silent quitting rarely begins in the relationship that's collapsing. It begins inside the person who feels alone in it. Sometimes the quitter doesn't want to quit. They want things to work. They want effort, reciprocity, a little enthusiasm, a little emotional presence. But wanting doesn't make things real. And after enough disappointment, the wanting fades too. The real tragedy is that the other person often notices only when silence replaces effort. They say things like, "You seem different," or "You're acting distant," or "You don't try anymore," not realizing that trying stopped because they didn't notice when it was happening. Silent quitting is the body's way of lowering the emotional thermostat after the relationship has burned too hot for too long. It looks cold, but it's really cooling down from years of overheating. What makes this even more interesting is that silent quitting can be reversed, but only if the other person recognizes it early and chooses effort, accountability, consistency, and reciprocity. But that requires self-awareness, and self-awareness is the rarest form of intelligence. Most people aren't listening for what they've done wrong, they're listening for how to defend themselves. So the quitter continues to drift, and the other person continues to wonder why everything suddenly changed. Not realizing that nothing was sudden, it was gradual, it was quiet, it was happening in the pauses. One of the clearest signs that someone has silently quit a relationship is that they stop arguing, not because they agree, but because they don't care enough to fight for change. Arguing in its own strange way is a form of investment. Silence is surrender. You can't lose a battle you've stopped showing up for. You can't lose a battle you've stopped showing up for. Another sign is emotional minimalism. Short answers, neutral tone, no more spark in the conversation, no more leaning in, no more excitement when sharing things that used to matter. The person becomes a quieter version of themselves, a version that fits the reality of the relationship. They start celebrating victories alone because sharing them no longer feels meaningful. They start comforting themselves because comfort from the other person doesn't land the way it used to. They start making plans that don't include the relationship because planning together has become too heavy. This isn't bitterness, it's adaptation. Silent quitting is the mind's way of saying, "I can't keep spending energy on something that gives me so little in return." It's a recalibration of a quiet reclaiming of space. What's fascinating is that the silent quitting doesn't always mean the relationship has to end. Sometimes it's a pause, a reset that allows someone to rebuild boundaries they didn't know they needed. Sometimes it reveals the deeper imbalance that both people were avoiding, and sometimes it's simply a sign that the chapter is closing. Most relationships in adulthood don't end with goodbyes, they end with less and less communication, less effort, less connection, until the relationship becomes a memory that no one mentions. Silent quitting is the path to that ending. And yet there's a calm beauty in understanding it. Because once you recognize the pattern, you stop chasing people you have already left emotionally. You stop pouring effort into relationships that have quietly expired. You stop fighting for closeness that only you want. You begin to match energy instead of subsidizing it. You begin to protect your peace instead of sacrificing it. You begin to walk away without slamming doors or burning bridges. You just walk. You become lighter, not because the world improved, but because you stopped carrying what wasn't yours. Silent quitting is a reminder that not every relationship is meant to survive. Silent quitting is a reminder that not every relationship is meant to survive the entire journey. Some people accompany us only for a season or a lesson or a moment of growth, and when their part is done, their presence quiets itself, not with drama, but with gentleness. You don't have to force endings, you just have to notice when the story stops turning pages. So if you've ever felt yourself drifting from someone you used to feel close to, or sense someone drifting from you, you're not imagining it. You're experiencing what the most common and least talked about phenomena in human relationships. Silent quitting isn't cruelty, it's exhaustion, it's clarity, it's self-preservation. It's the final step before acceptance. And sometimes acceptance is the beginning of something new, not with them, but with you. You're allowed to outgrow connections that don't grow with you. You're allowed to stop explaining yourself to people who aren't listening. You're allowed to stop investing in people who treat your effort like an optional service. You're allowed to quit quietly when the relationship has already ended silently. And in that stillness, you might just find exactly what you needed. Space, clarity, peace, and the freedom to choose better next time. Because the end of silent quitting is not loneliness. It's the peaceful return to yourself.